Welcome to Middlesex Moments from Middlesex Community College in Middletown. I'm Steve Minkler, the college CEO. On February 10th, Middlesex Community College held an online public event entitled Voices of Black Lives Matter in Our Community. This special panel discussion featured the perspectives of Middlesex Community College faculty members in the Criminal Justice Program and partners from the Community Child Guidance Clinic in Manchester. Hosting the event was the chair of Middlesex Community College's Cultural Awareness Committee, Professor Angelo Glaviano.
All right, so good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I would like to say how grateful I am to the panelists and to all of you for attending this important event. Also, a very special thank you goes out to Dean Mathis, Janet Klinck, and Annie Scott for helping me organizing this event. According to many media outlets, the U.S. is going through a period of renewed racial tensions. Tensions many of us mistakenly had thought faded. Many in our society have lived under the false assumption that racism and social inequalities were something happening in other faraway countries, but not here. And yet, here we are today, discussing the lack of social justice, rampant acts of racism, and social inequality, injustices that continually have plagued the U.S. society since its inception. The sociological awakening our country has undergone in the last few months has been eye-opening. I could not have imagined witnessing a portion of the U.S. population often losing their lives in incidents involving the police. Time and time again, these violent episodes continued, leading to the mass protests we witnessed taking place not only on American soil, but also in other countries, such as France, England, Italy, and Spain, where thousands showed solidarity to their American peers. I felt that as a member of this community and as the chair of the Cultural Awareness Committee, it was time for Middlesex Community College to host a community event, one during which the community at large had the opportunity to peacefully come together and discuss the racial-driven events occurring in our local and national communities. Today, our panelists will discuss social justice, social inequality, and racial discrimination without any intention to impose their personal views. This conversation is not going to be about who is right and who is wrong. The aim of this gathering is the peaceful exchange of opinions. Annie Scott, the director of IT department, will serve as the moderator. Annie, you take it away now.
Thank you, Angelo. Very relevant topics, obviously. I am actually going to start with an introduction of our panelists. Shaneka Campbell, she is a clinician and head of the chair of Culturally and Linguistically Appropriate Services at the Community Child Guidance Clinic in Manchester, Connecticut. Kevin McMahon, he is the Director of Marketing and Communication and Development for the Community Child Guidance Clinic in Manchester. Rebecca Rist Brown. Rebecca is a full-time professor and program coordinator for the Criminal Justice Program at Middlesex Community College, and she is a former law enforcement officer. Christian Moore is an adjunct professor in the Criminal Justice Program at Middlesex Community College and works full-time for the State Department of Correction. He is also the co-chair of the Middlesex Community College President's Committee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And myself, I'm the director of IT. I'll be moderating, and I am a member of the Committee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and also with CEO Dr. Stephen Minkler, I co-facilitate the Center for Civic Engagement's monthly Courageous Conversations. First, Christian, what does Black Lives Matter mean to you?
Thanks, Annie. Hi, everybody. For me, Black Lives Matter is basically a call for equality. It's a call from the Black community requesting equality, not favoritism, but equality when it comes to law enforcement's interactions with the community. It means to me a call for justice for those who maybe violate the rights of others, particularly people of color, as it relates to infractions of the law. So to me, Black Lives Matter means that this particular group, we're seeing more and more individuals lose their lives from what is unjustly situations.
Thank you. Kevin, could you also give us a sense of what Black Lives Matter means to you?
Yes, I can. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. And I think it's a statement. I mean, it literally, it is what it is. Black Lives Matter. And you can put a period right after that. To what we just heard, it's not saying Black Lives Matter more. It's not looking for anything other than to make a statement that Black Lives Matter. For a long time, we've seen it, and over the past year, we've seen it explode even further, or maybe the media has just brought it to our attention much more. But what we're trying to do is get a baseline of there's a problem going on where people of color are being attacked unjustly so, and at a level that's different than white people. And we need to take notice of that. We need to do something about it. And ultimately, we just need to make sure that at the baseline, recognize that Black Lives Matter. My mother, an older woman, thinks, all lives matter. That's true, but we're not worried about that right now. All lives aren't necessarily being attacked. Black lives are, and we need to do something to protect that. So it's a great opportunity for all of us to come together and focus on the problem.
And Shaneka.
Hello, everyone. So just to piggyback on the thoughts and comments already said, I am in that same boat. I believe the Black Lives Matter movement is focusing on problems that have been a pattern in the past, problems that are still present today. And the biggest thing that I'm taking away from the movement is creating a better future for the little boys and little girls of color, so that they don't have to, endure what is happening presently. I see it as a movement just really pushing for better equality and initiatives for the Black and color community, future-wise as well.
So for any one of you, either Kevin, Shaneka, or Christian, what do you think Black Lives Matter, the members of the movement, want?
I think, first of all, it's about getting more people noticing what's going on and getting people like myself. I'm a white guy. I don't know if you guys could tell through the camera, but, getting all of us, people who are fighting it every day and people who are living it, like Shaneka and I were talking about one day, like she lives it every day. I don't. It's getting people like me to understand the core of the problem to the best that I can. Obviously, I'm not going to understand it. If there's more ways for me to understand the severity of what's going on, so that way I can be a listener, be a voice, be an ally, whatever it might be.
And to piggyback on that, I agree with Kevin 1,000%. I believe the movement wants systemic issues to be addressed, such as racial profiling and fairness, and then accountability to stop these unjustified killings. As a person of color, everybody on campus knows I wear a suit every day. When I go into Macy's wearing my work clothes, so to speak, I have no issues. If I were to go in dressed differently, I get the looks. Is this guy here to do something unsavory? So I think that the movement is just really looking for fairness. And as Kevin said, equality. The movement isn't asking for a pass for someone who breaks the law, but just fairness.
Not to cut it off, but you said, not getting a pass. A couple of weeks ago, we saw what happened down at the Capitol. And I feel like people did get a pass, and not people of color. But, if that was a different situation, if it was a different group, Black Lives Matter was protesting the Capitol, I think we'd have seen a very different outcome, and it probably wouldn't have gotten nearly to the level that it did, because it would have been violence from the beginning, but not necessarily protester violence, but police violence. I think we, white people will sometimes get that pass.
That was a great, segue into my next question, Kevin, because you talked about police violence. And after the Black Lives Matter protests occurred this summer, and we've been seeing how the Black Lives Matter message about social injustices and police brutality have captured the attention, as Angelo said, and has resonated nationally and internationally. Yet we continue to see incidents, and some of those incidents are perpetrated on people with other differences. So the question is, are police officers adequately trained to adeptly deal with many situations involving people of varying ethnic, physical, and mental health backgrounds? And I want to ask that question of Rebecca Rist Brown.
Thank you, Annie. The first thing I want to explain to individuals watching this is that there is no universal standard set of training for law enforcement nationwide. Every police department is its own kingdom, its own set of policies and procedures. And the training standards are even different here in Connecticut from one department to another. Okay, we have minimum standards that are required by state, but those are minimums. So one of the examples I give is I was actually trained in Salt Lake City, Utah at the Federal Police Corps Academy, and my training was 2,300 hours. The training here at the Meriden Police Academy is 816 hours. So very, very different set of training. For us, learning law enforcement Spanish was a requirement. I can't speak Spanish very well, so please don't think that I can converse, but we were taught basics, how to communicate with individuals with Spanish. Here in Connecticut, I worked at 2 different departments. One was very proactive with training, where you got sent to lots of training. The other department did the minimum, where they would put a informational bulletin on the bulletin board, tell you to read it, and that was your training. So until we get consistency on requirements for training, we're going to see issues here. The other thing that I understand, people are calling for defunding the police, and I understand that, and I understand their emotions behind it. But if you defund the police and cut the budget, the first thing that will go is training. The second thing that will be cut is any of the outreach and extra programs that are outside basic patrol. I hate to say it, but defunding the police is actually going to probably make the problem worse. The more training we have, the more accountability we have, the more standardization we have across the board will benefit everybody.
Thank you. That's powerful. Christian, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, to piggyback on Rebecca's point, working for the Department of Correction, I do a lot of work with our cadets when they're hired. And the trainings, as she said, they vary. So consistency is a big, big issue. In my Intro to Corrections class, we talk a lot about how people become incarcerated. And obviously, they're arrested. And we look at some of the issues that police have to deal with, mentally ill calls that they have to go to. And the question, and this has come up in the media, are the police equipped to handle these different situations where they have someone who's very combative because he or she is not on their medication, and therefore the use of force is used. So I think there's a lot of variables that come into play, especially when we discuss training. And as Rebecca could probably tell you, when these officers are called, when they go to a call, I'm sure the adrenaline is real high, when they have to deal with these issues. And sometimes it can be a life or death situation that they have to make an on the moment decision. I think training is huge.
And Shaneka, as a clinician, what are you feeling about whether police are trained appropriately?
I'm glad to hear Rebecca's response, as I did not know much about the trainings and background of the police force. So I was really glad to hear that. But what I am hearing is that there needs to be more training and diversity in handling different backgrounds of the community that they serve. From personal experience living the inner city, I tend to see mostly white male police officers in the inner city. And if this is where you are choosing to take your profession, your career, if this is where you are placed, I think it is their duty as well to be trained within the area. As a clinician and as chair of Community Child Guidance Class Committee, we look at a lot of data. We look at who our clinic serves. How can we meet the needs of these different cultures and backgrounds? And that's within our clinical space. I see it just being just as fit and just as useful within a police force for them to then look at the data or look beyond that and just see who it is that are walking day to day on the sidewalks that they're patrolling. I think it makes perfect sense to gain more training within that area.
Okay, I'm going to ask each of you actually to respond to the next series of questions. So having seen what has happened over the past 5 years, and even in the past 7 months, what measures can we put in place for change?
Well, one of the things that we've done here with the community college system, with the criminal justice program coordinators, is actually we've been watching what's been going on in the news for the past couple of years, and we actually just overhauled our curriculum. we added now a core CJ diversity requirement where students will have to take one of 4 classes that goes into depth on diversity. So the courses are multiculturalism in criminal justice, fair and impartial policing, ethical issues in CJ, and contemporary issues in CJ. And on a shout out, Professor Moore is very excited about the multiculturalism class, and we're hoping to get it on campus as soon as possible. And we've also now embedded a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion into our core classes, such as Intro to Corrections, Intro to Law Enforcement, to really make sure that we are covering those topics in depth. One thing I wanted to kind of say to Shaneka is one of the roadblocks to hiring diverse police force is actually the fees associated with the testing process. The physical fitness fee can be anywhere from $85 to $95, and the actual test fee is about $95. And that is actually a financial barrier for a lot of our students and our new candidates trying to get into the police field. So that's one thing that our CJ program coordinators have been working with the police academy to try and identify some of these obstacles for recruiting a more diverse population in law enforcement.
Anyone else?
I guess I'll say just a little something. I mean, I do think a lot of it is personal accountability too. I think we need to really step up on looking at who we are on a daily basis, where we're going in society, and how we're treating others. I mean, on a very basic level. And I know sometimes it kind of is like, yeah, but we already do that. But at the same time, I don't think we do. And I think, it's only when stuff like we saw happen over the summer with 3 very media-focused violent acts. Other violent acts happened, but, we focused on the big 3 that brought it to the attention, right? But I think a thing that we need to make sure that we do is not let any act of violence go in vain, but we can't let the fire sizzle, or not sizzle, but we can't let it calm down. We got to keep the fire going. We can't let this topic just, let's wait to things are better. Let's wait to the next thing. Let's wait to the next act of violence or whatever it might be. We need to be accountable every day for the actions that we're doing and make small strides. I mean, the little things that you do in your life to try to be a better person. Turn that into, looking at yourself. I mean, being a white person, like, do I have, and I know I do, like, inherent biases that I'm acting on because I grew up with them. I grew up a certain way. Like, how am I adapting and making sure that those are not hurting other people? So there is that a personal accountability side. But my other big pledge that I've kind of made to my friends and to myself is just be a better listener. I need to listen a lot more, and be very aware of what is going on and not look at things from my own perspective, but try to get into the heads of other people and hear what the big problems are and how I can be of little service that I might be able to.
Shaneka or Christian, do you think that we, and I guess the national, international, global we, but also we on our small microcosmic campus, have learned anything from the recent months, either the Black Lives Matter demonstrations that were going on in the summer or what we've seen with the insurrection at the Capitol and the reaction that people have had? Has anything been learned?
I would say yes. People in my networking circle and just beyond that are realizing history is not so much history. It's still here. It's still happening. The pattern is still here. I think that with the summer, the violence, the protests and everything of that, I can personally say I did go out and protest, and I'm holding up my sign and I'm thinking, wow, like, I am doing this in 2020 after years of other ancestors doing the same exact thing. So that was a learning point for me, that there has to be change. Like, something has to give kind of thing. So I think, yes, it has been a learning experience. And to kind of go back a little bit to your question that Kevin just responded to, I think a lot of it comes from higher ups. I think it is your personal reflection, but a lot of it comes from the lawmakers. For example, if we look at the ongoing or, the frequency of the school shootings, there were laws that were put in place. There were lawmakers that got out and changed things. In that same stance, this is a different subject, but lawmakers and people of higher positions and able to sign documents and make changes in the community, I think it comes from them as well. So I think this is time for them to learn and listen to make these changes as well.
I agree with Shaneka, is that I think we have learned a lot. There has been a huge gap from the civil rights movement all the way to 2020. And while racial injustice still was there, it was under the covers for many years. And I think the covers have been pulled off the bed, that now we see that these horrific killings and things are still going on. Because, you talk to a lot of people and out of sight, out of mind. They think, well, that was in the past, that was then, this is now, we've come a long way. We've all heard that, somewhere or another. But I think we've all learned from all walks of life, whether you're Black, white, Hispanic, whatever your background is, you realize that racism is still there, and injustice and inequalities are still there. For measures for change, I think one thing is to be proactive with more community policing. As Shaneka stated, we need to get our law enforcement into the communities so that they're comfortable policing and governing those areas and those neighborhoods. I know here in Connecticut, some time ago, there was discussion that we had officers that, lived in one area of the state, but were working in another. So there's a disconnect. And with that disconnect can come fear. And as a result of that fear, we can see weapons being discharged when maybe there could be some other measures. And as Kevin stated, I think accountability is what we really need. Not all law enforcement are bad, but I think the culture needs to shift in many of the departments. And as Rebecca said, we need some standardizations as it relates to trainings with that. That's how you're going to shift those cultures and then have the accountability. We see it in corrections, because we have incidents of use of force as well with our inmates. How do you shift the culture?
So if we were to return here and see the progress next year this time, I guess sort of vision casting, right? What do you hope to see? Kevin?
Well, let me start by saying what I hope I wouldn't see between now and then. I hope I see more protesting where it's needed. I hope I don't see a need for more protesting. You know what I'm saying? Because
State that again. Just state that again.
If protesting is needed, awesome. I mean, I get it, but I hope there's not going to be a need for more protesting, which means I don't want to see, between now and next year, I don't want to see another person killed. I don't want to see anyone killed, but I don't want to see someone killed for reasons that never should have happened. Next year, I want to see more conversations that are being had. I've had a couple conversations with Shaneka and another one of my colleagues, Anissa, and I got to tell you, it makes me sad just on a baseline that Christian just said it about almost like the covers have been pulled. I can look at it being like, I have Black friends, it's not like the 50s where people are getting sprayed in the streets, so things have gotten so much better. But what I didn't realize until really after the summer, and it's an awareness thing, was that my friend Anissa, she's just like, oh no, this has been going on. It's nothing new. Like, you might think that things have calmed down, but it really has just been under the covers. So, between now and next year, I want to have those covers really ripped off the bed. Let's have it all out, and let's just really start, hopefully having more of these conversations and having more of an opportunity to really see what's going on so that I can be aware. I can help where I can help, and just, let's get it all, let's air all the dirty laundry, I guess. I mean, I think, but hopefully we don't have to do it in light of another act of violence.
Rebecca?
I guess I'd like to see more collaboration, and I think we're actually really moving in that direction between us as a community college institution with the police academy. There's been some changes in leadership over there, so those individuals over there working at Post, I'm not talking about Post University, Post, the Connecticut Police Academy, are open to having those discussions with us now, where in the past, those open lines of communication weren't there. So that's very, very promising, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen with us and them in the next year, and what we develop and what programs we can collaborate on. The other thing to be mindful, and Christian kind of brought this up a little bit, is there's a lot of, and I'm going to talk from the police perspective, a lot of officers are fearful right now. They're fearful of losing their job. They're fearful of being that next officer on the meeting in the media. So a lot of them are actually quitting and resigning. And that is actually going to compound and make our problems worse, because we lose those seasoned officers that knew the people in the community. Working midnights for 6 years, or 4 years in one of my departments, I knew all the people on midnights. I knew all the clerks, the 7-Eleven people. You build that rapport. And I'm just concerned that we might have a little bit of destabilization with those community police officers because we're seeing a mass exodus. And I'd like to see the exodus stop. I guess that's one of my hopes, is that we stabilize things.
Thank you. And how about you, Shaneka? We're looking forward in sort of progressively, and even just a year down. What would you like to see?
I would like to see improvement in several areas. I would like there to be better training protocols. I would like that to be implemented. On a clinical note, I would like colleagues of different backgrounds to be comfortable to work with different clientele and to kind of reach out to other clinicians. How can I best connect with this child that comes from a different background, different culture than myself? Asking questions. Kevin made a good point of listening. I think that, just taking the time, whoever is in higher positions, like the lawmakers and anyone of like CEO status, just listening will go a long way. I think there will be change with that as well. Just many improvements in acceptance and accountability.
And how about you, Christian?
I'd like to see more unity. I think Rebecca made a great point about collaborating together. I think going forward, again, it brings us back to being accountable for our actions. And I'd like to see the legislature enforce the laws for those who break it. Obviously, each situation is a case-by-case scenario with its own different dynamic. But I like to see more unity and more people in the community coming together with our law enforcement to have that support system to say, hey, we're all here for the same motivation to live peacefully and safely, and that no particular group should feel slighted in that when it comes to their well-being and their safety. So my biggest thing is just, I hope we see more unity.
Thank you for listening to Middlesex Moments from Middlesex Community College. You can visit us in person at our main campus located at 100 Training Hill Road in Middletown. If you visit, please wear a face mask. You can also see us at our Meriden Center located at Platt High School, or you can visit us anytime 24/7 at mxcc.edu. On behalf of everybody at Middlesex Community College, I'm Steve Minkler. Please be safe and be well.